Hey, it's Mel, and today I'm finally filming my LGBT book recommendations video because today is the 3-year anniversary to coming out to my best friend, so I thought that it was appropriate. These aren't going to be all of the books that I could talk about because that would take absolutely forever, so I'm only doing some of the books, not all of them, so if you think that I should have included some things that you can see like right here, then just don't, because I have loads more. The first book that I have to talk about is my absolutely all-time favourite book, and that is Everything I See by Nina LaCour. This is a book about a girl called Emmy who works on film sets with her best friend. It's like an amazing job, and then she goes to an estate sale for this famous actor who died, and his main thing was Western films, and she gets like a record, and out of that comes a letter addressed to this guy's daughter, even though no one knew he had a daughter, and it's like a mystery thing that goes on. But also there's amazing romance, and this is just written so well. And then while all this is going on, her older brother just tells her that he's leaving for uni, but he's leaving his LA flat behind, so he wants her to do something amazing with it. And then that's kind of also the story. I actually cried when I finished this, not like it was sad or anything, just because it was so beautiful. And then in the acknowledgements, the author mentions this lady and how she's her getaway girl, and that's a reference to a bit in the book where one of the characters goes into a house that she's been kicked out of to try and get something and uses Emmy as a getaway girl. It made me far too emotional because I already was kind of emotional about the ending of the book, and then I just lost it. So this is amazing and everyone should read it, and I could talk about it forever. It's just the best thing I've ever read. And I've read a lot of things. The next book is more for younger readers, and that is Starring Kitty by Kerry Stainton. This is a book about a girl called Kitty who enters this film competition with her friends for like the tourist board of their town, but along with that it follows her dealing with her sexuality, and it also includes first love and her shamelessly flirting with this girl. And there were references to how they watched Wizards of Waverly Place and thought Selena Gomez was like really hot, and I was like, same, because that's what I did when I was little. And it's just so sweet and fluffy and lovely, and it doesn't really have any dark sides to it apart from this dramatic bit, but it's just amazing and adorable. The next book is kind of a flip side to Starring Kitty, and that is Annie on My Mind by Nancy Garden. This is more like a modern classic, and it's not really set that modern. It's set quite a while ago, following this girl called Liza and this girl called Annie, and they meet in a museum, and it's really romantic and amazing. And I read it absolutely ages ago, so I can't really remember everything about it, but I know that it was really good. The next book is a recent favourite of mine, and that is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This is a book about a boy, Simon, who is emailing this other guy called Blue, but he's not really called Blue. That's just his like screen name, and they know that they go to the same school, and they kind of met through a post on Tumblr, and it's just really adorable. The romance is so sweet, but also I was like craving knowing who it was, but I didn't want to know any other way than just reading this. And I took so many quotes from this because it's just beautiful, and this is like the author's first book, so that's like amazing because it was so good. This is also the most I have ever connected with a character. I mentioned that on my book talk for this book, and I just love it so much. Everyone has to read it because it's amazing. The next book is actually the first book in a 4-book series, and that is Geography Club by Brent Hartinger. I absolutely love this book, and it also has a movie of the book, and that's also quite good. So Geography Club basically follows this guy called Russell. Not surprising seeing the series is called the Russell Middlebrook series, but it's about this guy who's messaging this other guy anonymously, and they meet up one time, and he realizes that it's actually like one of the jocks from his school, and then they kind of have a thing. Then this girl Min invites him to this geography club thing, and it's not like an actual geography club, it's like a GSA, but with disguising it so that they don't like have everyone know about them. It's also one of those things where his friend Gunnar kind of guilts him into going in on double date with him, and then the girl really likes him, and he's all like, I can't really tell her that I can't be with her. It's one of those like what happened in Dragons or Boys movie that I absolutely love. And I really love the rest of the series too, in like The second one, he goes to this summer camp. In the third one, he works on a movie set, and on the fourth one, he deals with this guy who's flirting with him, and he's kind of a hippie and he doesn't really have a home, and it's really weird. And I also recently found out that there's this other series that takes place when all of the characters are 20, so there's that. The next book is also one of my recent favourites, and that being The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. For this one, it's not the main character, it's like the very second main character, because this book follows this girl and her brother's best friend, and this fairy prince thing that has been sleeping for absolutely as long as anyone can remember. They all live in this village. The like fairies are a common thing and everyone knows about them, and they know to stay away from them because they're kind of dangerous, because normally fairies are, but there's always like at least one tourist that dies every year. I also have a book talk for this one because it's just amazing. I love this book so much, and if you think a certain other Holly Black book should be on this list for the secondary character, then I did write it down, but I didn't have enough time to do all of them. I really love this. The like prologue and epilogue are more poetic than the rest of the story, and it's just great, and it's really refreshing to see the community represented in a fantasy setting. The next one is actually a graphic novel, and that is The Young Avengers Omnibus by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey. This follows the characters Hulkling, Wiccan, Hawkeye, Nova, Prodigy, Miss America, as they try to take down this reincarnation of Hulkling's mother that's actually evil, and brainwashing all of the other group's parents to make them evil and reincarnate if they have perished in the past. And the actual Avengers, which do feature in this slightly, cannot help because they are adults, and adults are immune to knowing what's going on. Like, there's a bit where in the Avengers mansion in Central Park, Thor and Captain America can't sleep, so they sit at this window and behind them there is a battle going on. The queer elements are Hulkling and Wiccan are in a committed relationship for the majority of this, and they are both gay. There's Prodigy, who is bi, and Nova was on this experimental ship, which he said was experimental in every sense of the word. Miss America clearly likes girls, and there's a scene at the very end of this graphic novel where Hawkeye says, "Am I the only straight one in this group?" And Miss America says, "I see the way you look at me, princess, you're not that straight." So that's a pretty good sum up of the relationships in this book, and it's just amazing. I read it in a day and it made my dad read it. It's just amazing, and the artwork is incredible. And another side note, Miss America also has two mothers, so there's that. This book deals quite heavily with alternate dimensions and stuff like that. The next book is another fantasy one, and that is Ash by Melinda Lowe. This is an incredible book that I read ages and ages ago. It's a retelling of Cinderella, and there's a romance between her and a male fairy, and then there's also a romance between her and a huntress who is like gorgeous, and there's the whole evil stepmother thing but with way more fantasy elements, and I never hear anyone on BookTube talking about it, even though this is an incredible book. There's also a sequel slash prequel. It's basically a book in the series that takes place like 100 years before this book, but in the same world but with different characters. It's called Huntress, and I haven't read it yet, and also I have another book by her which is the first book in a sci-fi series, but I haven't picked that up either. Even if it's not about romance, this book is still incredible. The next book is, the last two books that I have to talk about are by the same author, the first being It's Our Prom So Deal With It by Julianne Peters. I read this the other week for the BookTube-a-thon and I really did like it. It follows two different queer characters, so I didn't really know where to categorize it, but I thought that I would just include it at the end. So this follows Azure, who is a lesbian, but also Luke, who is a bi guy, and they're both in love with their female best friend, which causes some complications, but not as many as you'd think. But by the end, everyone's kind of happy, and Azure is allowed to be on the prom committee to create a alternative prom so that more people go to prom, and it's cheaper and it's amazing. So it follows the two characters from learning that this thing could be a thing to the actual prom, which is just amazing. And also Luke puts on a play beforehand. I think it's good for representation for either of those things, so it's really cool. The last book I read ages ago, like a couple years, and it's for the T in LGBT, and that is Luna by Julianne Peters. This is a beautiful book about a trans girl called Luna, but it's not from her perspective, it's from her sister's perspective, and it's super cool. If a little heartbreaking, it was really good and beautifully written. If anyone's looking for a book about a trans character, this is really good, because even though it's from the sister's perspective and the whole family situation isn't that great because they're kind of not very happy about it, I'm pretty sure this book could be upsetting to some people, but if it wouldn't be upsetting to you, I recommend you read it. So those were all of the books for all of the categories for the LGBT book recommendations video, and I definitely have more, seeing as there's actually a place on my bookshelf that focuses on that. So if you have any recommendations, like, tell me. I'd love to know, but even though I've probably already read them, I'll have them on my to-read list. And if you're wondering where I fit on the spectrum, I am the L. Bye!